Okay, so the first three, you're solving quadratics, but you don't need to use the quadratic formula because they just have an x squared in, they don't have the x. If that's the case, you can get this x by itself just by square rooting to cancel out the squared. Do the same to this side. Right, this is what you got to remember because it's an easy point off if you forget. There's two answers on quadratics, so it's got to be plus or minus. So here we got to add 6. Then get rid of the 3, so you divide by 3. And then finally square root plus or minus 3. This one's pretty much the same as that. To get the x by itself, get rid of the minus 8, so you add 8. Divide by 6. And then you get rid of the squared, you square root. And remember that it is plus or minus 3. Okay, to simplify radicals. In order to simplify them, you got to check to see if any of the perfect squares go into them. 2 times 2, 3 times 3, 4 times 4, and so on. 25. Okay, so what perfect square goes into 50? 25. I can split this up into 25 times 2 because that turns into 50. Now, you could go square root of 10 times the square root of 5. That's also square root of 50, but it doesn't help you at all because neither of these are perfect squares. Even though it's true, it doesn't help you. That would be wrong, yep. So this turns into 5 square roots of 2. If it's a fraction, you can look to simplify if you can, or you can split it up like that, and then they're both perfect squares. Square root of 1 is 1, square root of 9 is 3. 108, again, to figure out which one of these goes in there, you just use a calculator and start dividing. And this one, it is 36. 36 times 3. And then the square root of 36 is 6. So the answer is 6 square roots of 3. Here, they're both under the square root. They're both perfect squares. So it's 3/9. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 81 is 9. It's not completely simplified because you can reduce it into 1/3. Now this one, 16 is a perfect square, so you could do it that way, but it'll save you some time if you reduce it first. Because if I divide both these by 4, I get square root of 3 over square root of 4. Because I just divided this by 4 and that by 4. And then that's a perfect square. So it'd just be square root of 3 over 2. Number 9, you can't reduce these because this is not underneath the radical sign. So all we got to do is simplify this, just like we did here. 4 is the biggest perfect square that goes into it. 4 times 10 is 40. And then the square root of 4 is 2. So it's 2 square roots of 10 over 14, which you're not quite completely simplified because you can reduce 2 over 14. It would be over 7. The 2 would cancel out, and that would turn into a 7. Okay, the graphing. Everyone know what you start with when you graph? Negative b over 2a. So here, there is no b. A is 1, c is negative 4, but there's no x. So negative b over 2a is 0 over 2, because the a is 1, which is 0. So then you got to plug this number in. 0 squared minus 4 is negative 4. So at 0 over 4 down is the vertex. So remember, that is also the axis of symmetry. Then you just start putting in numbers close to 0. 1. 1 squared minus 4 is -3. So you go over 1, down 3, flip it over. Then 2. 2 squared minus 4 is 0. So over 2, up 0, flip it over, and then draw in your parabola. Okay, in 11, negative b over 2a is, b is -6, so negative makes positive 6. A is a -1, so 2 times -1 is -2. 6 over -2 is -3. So, this is one that a lot of people got wrong when we did them. When you put -3 in, this negative right here is going to keep this positive because the negative is not being squared. -3 squared is 9, but the negative stays there. You got to be careful with that on the calculator because some calculators will change it to +9, and then you'll get all messed up. -6 times -3 is +18, so that gives us a +9. So, I would go by 3s. Make sure if you go by a different number on the test that you mark in so I know what you're going by. So left 3, up 9 would be right there. Then next to it, remember this, if I slide over 3, that puts me at 0, so that's fine. If I put 0 in, it'd be 0 minus 0 is 0. Then flip it over. Now you could put in 1 and figure out what that is. Or you could just slide over and put in 3 because that's the next line over. But when you do that, you get -27. So you don't need to graph that. That just tells you it drops fast. So this is enough points to put in. Just these 3. Negative b over 2a is -4 over 2 times 1 is -2. So we plug that in. That'd be 4, that's 8. Oops. -3. So left 2, down 3. And that's the middle, that's the axis of symmetry. So then go over 1, that would be -1 you could put in. So that would give me 1 minus 4 is -3, that would be -2. Left 1, down 2, flip it over. Then plug in 0. 0 is the easiest because that's 0, and that's 1. So it's 0 over 1 up. And then flip it over and draw in the parabola. Okay, negative b over 2a. B is a -1, so I would cancel with that negative, make positive. A is 2, so that's 4. So again, you can leave it 1/4 on the calculator. It's easier to make it a decimal, 0.25. And then, if I remember right, it's -1.125. Anyone got their old test? Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So when you put 0.25 in here, you get -1.125. So that is 0.25 over, and -1.125 would be right about there. So then, 0 doesn't help you much. It's close to it, but it's going to be so close it doesn't do much. So I'd go this way and put 1 in. So that would be 2 minus 1 is 0. So 1 over 0 up, flip it over. Remember, this is at a fourth, so it's 3/4 of the way. So 3/4 over here would be right there. Then I can put in 2. So if you put 2 in for x, we'd get 8 minus 2 minus 1 is 5. So 2 over 5 up, flip it over. Again, this is 1 3/4, so if I go 1 3/4, it'd be right there. And there's the problem. Okay, the inequalities are exactly the same as these. The only difference is if it doesn't have the equal, remember what you got to do? No. Dotted. It's a dotted parabola. And then you got to shade either inside or outside, depending on what the sign is. So you do the same thing. It's negative b over 2a. B is negative 6, so negative makes positive 6. A is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 6 over 2 is 3. So when I put 3 in here, that's negative 9 plus 5, it's negative 4. So 3 over 4 down is the vertex. So then I just slide over this way. I could put 2 in next. So that'd be 4 minus 12 plus 5, that's negative 3. So 2 over 3 down, flip it over. And then I could put 1 in. And I get 0. 1 over 0 up, flip it over. And again, it's easy to forget this, but it doesn't have the equal, so you put a dotted line. And then you got a shade. Since y is less than, you go to the vertex, less is below, which puts you outside, so you shade around it. All right, last graphing one. Negative b over 2a is negative. Negative 2 is positive 2. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 over 2 is 1. So when I put 1 in there, I get 2. 1 minus 2 times 1 plus 3. So 1 over 2 up. Then I can put 1 in. Oops, I went 2 over 2 up. So I could put 0 in, that's close by. And I would get 3, so 0 over 3 up, flip it over. And then I could put negative 1 in, or if you don't want negatives, go over to this one, which is 1, 2, 3. Put 3 in. So that'd be 9 minus 6 plus 3 is 6. So that puts it off the graph a little bit. It has the equal, so you make it solid. And then y is less than or equal to, so you go to the vertex, less than is below, so that shades around it. Okay, 2 easiest questions. No one better get these wrong.
I will. 2 and 4.
Roots are solutions which are where they intersect at 2 and 4. Here it intersects at, remember these go by 2's, negative 5
Negative 5 with 2.
and positive 2.
Stop. Can't concentrate.
Okay, then the last page use the quadratic formula and find the x-intercepts. It means the same thing. X-intercepts is to solve. So you do the same for all four of these. You gotta use negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So, a is 10, or I mean 1, b is 10, c is 24. So you just plug them in. Negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. This turns out to be 4, which is a perfect square. It's 2. So my two answers are negative 10 plus 2 divided by 2, which is negative 4. Remember when you do this on a calculator, go this plus this, press equals before you divide by 2. Then negative 10 minus 2 divided by 2 is negative 6. So here a is 1, b is negative 2, c is negative 15. So negative b changes that to positive. B squared is 4 minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a, which is 2. 64, which is 8. So 2 plus 8 divided by 2 is 5. 2 minus 8 is negative 3. Okay, so remember these are done the same way. It's just instead of 0 equals, they have y equals. So a is 1, b is negative 3, c is 2. So negative b makes that 3. B squared 4 times a times c all over 2 times a, which is 2. This makes square root of 1, which is 1. So 3 plus 1 divided by 2 is 2. 3 minus 1 divided by 2 is 1. This was one where it wasn't a perfect square, if I remember right. A is negative 2, b is 4, c is negative 1. So b, negative b, plus or minus b squared, minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a is negative 4. This is 8. Not a perfect square. So you go negative 4 plus the square root of 8 divided by negative 4. Round to the nearest hundredth on these. It's 0.29, I think. Negative 4 minus square root of 8 was 1.71. Was this one negative?
Wow, you're gonna make a girl cry.
Yeah, this one was negative, I think. No. Wow. No, this one was positive. Okay.